Talk. I'm talking.
Talking.
This is me talking.
Talking. Let's turn it down. Talk. That sounds
really good. Did I ever mention that you have a beautiful voice?
No.
I told you my wife listened to the podcast and she goes, "Hey, Nick has a really nice voice for a podcast." And I'm like, "What about your husband?
You sound like shit.
You sound You're now my new consultant on the real estate market.
If you start taking advice from me in real estate, you're already going down the wrong road, my friend.
I heard it was difficult from you, but I also heard it was difficult from the news. It's like there's no apartments to rent. There's nothing to buy. I was thinking it might be because of interest rates, but it kind of doesn't make sense. And none of it, I think people are just gouging, man.
I don't know. I think that, the fact that people keep telling me that there's not a lot of stuff, because we're trying to buy a place, there's not a lot of stuff for sale. People are not selling because they're like, oh, I don't want to pay the new interest rates if I'm going to buy a place. So they feel like people are just staying put. So I think that's it.
That's my wife and I said the same thing. Like we got 3%. It's like, why?
Yeah, you shouldn't.
Why would I?
You just wait it out. Unless you are in dire straits or space or school or whatever. But
yeah, supply and demand.
Our fine economic brains at work again here. But I think that, when house prices went way crazy up, because they did go up, is that people, like the down payments became harder and harder to hit. So I think that people just had to rent, and then more people renting and
demand.
I think that's, there are those companies that's what they do. They buy like huge portfolios of homes and then they maintain them and rent them out.
I just don't know. People aren't coming to the podcast to hear us talk about
about local politics.
Politics and economics. All right, what do you say we start the show? Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Full Grain Podcast. I'm Phil Kalas here with Nick Horween. Good to see you, Nick.
Hey, Phil. It's been a little bit.
I'm going to ask you some questions that I first asked ChatGPT, and this is a shocker for you. We got history of the company over 5 generations, leathers you produce, processes and techniques, challenges and opportunities in the leather industry, and products and customers you work with. Pretty wide range.
It means everything.
I think ChatGPT is the master of vague questions. Have at it, Nick.
I think that the opportunity in a lot of, at least in the industry segment that we're in, is just getting stuff to people in a timely way. I think that people have resolved themselves to wait for certain things, and we've talked about this before. I don't remember what episode, but we were talking about how people just want things instantly now. And you can retrain people to a certain degree to wait for something if it's custom or quality or something. But to get your foot in the door, if someone's going to go into a shoe shop and be like, I want a pair of shoes, and like, well, you can order these, but you can't get them for 18 months. Like, you've lost that customer.
I think that's pretty common today too.
Yeah, I think so too. And so I think that, and that's, that starts, I think that's everyone to a certain extent. And like I'm thinking specifically like the shoes and boots side of things. And then that goes back to just workforce in a lot of ways. But I think if we can figure out how to get stuff to stores, stuff meaning inventory, that goes a long way to kind of fixing like some of the cyclical problems that we face, like of demand. Because I think that, if people can't get it, people want it and then they can't get it, then they stop trying to get it if you just can't find it.
Oh, I see. I think I see what you're implying here. You're saying that as a tannery producing certain articles of leather, that there's a potential for other tanneries to take your business.
There's that, but I'm lumping all the tanneries together to a certain extent. So,
they'll find leather alternatives.
Yeah. So if you go, I don't like to pick on brands, but let's
generic
pick on brands. No, if you go to a men's shoe store and it's like a department store and they've got a couple different options, and you go in there and you're like, I want this boot in brown chrome XL. I'll pick on myself. And they're like, oh, that leather it's just taken longer to get it from the tannery to the shoe supplier. So we can get that product, but it's a pre-order and you have to wait 10 months. And then you go take 3 steps to the left and there's a boot there that's, looks somewhat similar, but you can get it right now. Like you then become, it's sort of like it's a fork in the road. Like either you decide to wait or you become that company's customer. Because I think that a lot, that people do develop brand loyalty, especially if something is comfortable and priced right and functional. So when you miss that opportunity, you're not just missing that sale that day. So I think that when product becomes unavailable for extended periods of time, and this is total, just like theory, but then people seek substitutions, and then those substitutions become not substitutions anymore. They become like the normal product for those people. And then, the demand for the stuff that you have to wait for goes down a little bit. And then so that's what I mean by cycle. So I think that if you can avoid that cycle, it makes everybody's life easier, from like, the tanning input suppliers down to the stores and even the end customer. So I think that just getting stuff on time, or at least in a way, sort of like industry standard amount of time,
where you can forecast it to some extent.
Yeah, I think there's a big opportunity there. It's an opportunity. It's easy to say it's an opportunity because I'm not exactly sure there's no quick fix to it. I mean, like for us at the tannery, we need people, and we've been getting people, but there's in a 6 or 8 week product. I mean, that translates to a lot longer to our customers. And then, something like Horween is 6 months. So, I mean, it's almost like the cycle, you get leapfrogged by the cycle and you have to like catch it on the next,
I see.
On the next time it comes around to try to, I don't say capitalize, but that's kind of maybe not the right word, but to
take that opportunity.
To have the inventory in the right place at the right time.
I've noticed the last few times I've been to the tannery, I've seen a lot of new faces, and I haven't been there now. This is how old we're getting. I haven't been there working there for almost 4 years now, which is crazy. And in those 4 years, the class picture has changed, as your dad would say. How are things going these days? You getting a lot more leather out the door?
Not a lot. I mean, it doesn't happen like right away, but more, definitely more. I mean, we're climbing out of some of the back order positions that we have. But to your point, I mean, people and customers have gone and found alternate options because
they can get it.
Well, they have to. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've got orders. So their option is to have an order get canceled, or to try to find a product that they can put in the place of a different product. So, I mean, I get it. It's a business decision. It's not even, and the only like thing that helps me sleep is they say in quotes that like if they could get our product, they would prefer that, but you just can't get it. So
you got a pretty big ego there, Nick.
I put quotes on it. No, I think that I mean, there are so many nice products out there. I'm not saying that the only option comes from us, but I think in certain applications we do a pretty nice job. So that's all I'm saying.
I like it. Something I wanted to talk about today as a bigger topic, and I actually kind of noticed, this is so silly, I noticed myself getting emotional about my feelings towards the Stitchdown Patina Thunderdome.
Oh boy. Yep.
Oh boy. You don't an emotional human here. Well, I
can't handle emotions.
I'll tell you just
ask my wife.
Yeah. The top line summary for me is I love the idea of the Thunderdome and I hate doing it. That's the top. And that's why I'm so bummed out about it, because I know how much time and effort and care is put into setting up such an event from Ben and all the people working on that project. It must be so difficult to manage hundreds of people sending all the photos of boots and then having to judge them. Is pretty funny. What did you wear this year for the Thunderdome? I
wore Viberg Capto service boots in Cypress. Which is a somewhat new. It's not really a new leather. It's like a new
finishing
approach.
Yeah,
a new approach to an old leather. But I wore them. They're steel toed, so I was wearing them like around work. And I took pictures the first month, and I was like, I mean, to the point of this podcast, like we have been having a hard time like getting together because I'm like a deadbeat and I can't like figure out my schedule. But
you're busy, man.
Yeah. But I mean, that's for me, that sort of fell off the table, that just taking pictures of stuff.
Right. Didn't meet the threshold of priority for the moment.
It didn't. And it's kind of a shame because if you miss it 1 month, you're kind of done.
Because when I say all these things about how cumbersome it is to take photos every month, I look at him like, are you for real, Phil? Like, it takes you how long to take a photo? But for me, like, I want to do a nice job. Yeah. I think we care enough about photography to like light it right and put it in a good setting and brush it and clean it beforehand. So it's a couple hours for me. But on your boots, first of all, I think you brought them on to this show.
Yeah.
They're rock hard.
They're still rock hard.
They're like the most beefy Vibergs you've ever seen, which is a beefy brand to begin with. And then is it heavier weight somehow? Or maybe it's just the outsole, midsole, all that is just like, it's like wearing a log on your
so it's it's a stiffer leather because it's got the hard wax on it, and then it's a cap toe and it's a steel toe and it's a welt. It's a Goodyear welt. And yeah, the midsole, outsole is
chunky,
beefy, and it's just everything is beefy about those. They're awesome. They'll last forever. I can't even. I'll get them broken and they'll be comfortable for like 15 years, and then I'll have to get a new bottom put on them, and they'll.
You feel like you never got through the break-in process?
No, definitely not. Yeah. Not fully. Yeah, it's it'll be a while.
I got really excited at the beginning of the 6-month Patina Thunderdome process. However, I did not plan ahead, so I was sort of scrambling in the month leading up to it to find something to wear. And before we did our patina episode, I was thinking that lighter color veg would give me the most dramatic effect change. And you've actually convinced me with the baseball glove argument that you don't necessarily need a full veg to gather patina collected on there. So anyways, I picked out 2 boots that were in stock that I could get. One of them was, I think it's the field boot from Oak Street out of the Merriam horse rump, they call it. It's like a veg horse butt. And then the other was a Grantstone brass boot in your tan Essex, which I think has a bit of pigment in it, which it's like still like a nice, it's like a semi-pigmented look. Still has a nice like natural vibe to it, but you can tell that it's more consistent of a tan than most veg can become. I think there's a little something on there which may have prevented some of that patina effect. So honestly, like neither of them changed very dramatically, but I enjoyed wearing both pairs very much. I think I actually got a good fit for once, like right away, which was nice because Oak Street's local. I went and tried them on, and Grantstone is 2 states over, and it's not too hard to send those back and get them the right size. Anyways, I started experimenting with applying some Venetian shoe cream to each of them every month. And I was wearing the 2 pairs. So like I would do one day with the Oak Streets and one day with the Grantstone, alternate back and forth. And then the first of the month, I would apply the Venetian cream and try to give them a nice polish for those photos we're talking about. There's kind of a process. A couple observations. Number one, the color didn't change very much despite putting on so much material. And then after about month 3, it started to look kind of like Venetian cream. It started to get this white, like cloudy, sort of chalky look. So that's advice I give to a lot of people is don't put on polish unless you think it needs it. Like, what are you trying to improve on that look? Do you want it to be shinier? Is it a scratch you're trying to fill in? But if you're just doing it as a habit, like, oh, it's the first of the month, like I was doing it seemed to just accumulate and oversaturate the material to where that wax was just sitting up on top of the grain. It's just not a great look. So again, around month 3 or 4, I was like, man, it was holiday time. So business was really busy. We're trying to ship out stuff for Christmas shoppers, Black Friday, all that. It was just like really challenging to spend a couple hours to get it done. So after the 6 months, I did a YouTube video talking about this whole process. And again, I kind of got like emotional. I had to like delete one of the takes where I was like being a baby. Cause I felt really awful feeling the way I felt. I felt like I was being disrespectful somehow because I know how much.
Like you got angry?
No, I didn't get angry. I got sad.
Okay.
because I know how much people that settle this up care and have put in so much work, and I'm putting out a video publicly on YouTube where I'm like, I don't like it. Like, it's just not for me. Like, I think part of the problem was I did 2 pairs. The other part of the problem I think they might want to consider is doing like all the set of photos that they require.
Yeah.
Like, I think if it was like, give me one good one, like there's a nesting shot, there's the front, the back, like, I think like you could get maybe the first month you do all of them and the last month, but in between, like, just give me like one cool shot, right? Like, do the in-betweens really matter that much? So that's where I'm at. I like the idea a lot. And then the second part of it that really bothers me, and I'm starting to realize how much it bothers me after the fact, after the event is over, is that I didn't get a chance to wear my other stuff. So I have had these 110 last natural shell cordovan Vibergs that you and Brett helped me out with that have just been sitting there for years. Because in the summer, I'm not going to wear like work boots in shorts and stuff because it gets kind of hot. And then the winter, I was always doing the Thunderdome. So I've been sitting on these things for years. I've been wearing them and loving them. So I've been wearing those. I've been wearing some black Chrome XL boots, diesel boots. Yesterday, I was wearing some indie boots. I was like, man, these are so great too. So for me, it kind of felt like a little upsetting because you have to quote unquote wear these things for 6 months and neglect all your other stuff, which to me is like not fun. Like I want to wear all the stuff. And then second or third, I suppose at this point, I think it's very self-serving. I think a wallet would be a better wearing process or to show because you're getting that constant polishing in your pocket. I did ask Ben about that because a bunch of people have been asking me to do something along those lines. He said to run the app, it's very expensive, like to pay for the app development and run all that. So that's another reason why it's upsetting that I feel so poorly about them doing the event. Like, anyways, I think there's some things that are incredible, and it's certainly like opened a lot of people's eyes to different leathers, different makers, and showing how this stuff wears in. Because to your point, to the first topic is like, you go to the store, you see a brown Chrome XL boot, and you see something else. That potential future of each boot is completely different because I've noticed on the indie boots I have upstairs right now, I've been wearing those for 12 years. They look better than they did when I got them. And how do you know that? Well, this Thunderdome thing might be a really good like resource for a lot of people to see. That's where I'm at. Tell me I'm overly emotional and crazy, please.
No, I think that's because getting all those shoes. I mean, it's an investment. I mean, each pair is kind of an investment. You're
expensive.
You're spending more to have something that's going to last longer, and then to wear it less than you would normally. Is a little counterintuitive. I mean, it works. I'm sort of on the opposite side because it works for me because I tend to I'll get a pair of shoes or boots, and then I kind of wear them. Like I just wear that pair.
Yeah.
For like 6 months anyway. So it's sort of like how I work, unless they're steel-toed and super hard. Then I take them off when I leave. But when I participated more actively last year, I mean, I picked a pair of shoes or boots that I would not have normally picked for myself.
The evergreen.
Yeah. But yeah, the evergreen boots. And I mean, they're for no reason other than just the last shape is a little different than what I normally wear. And they're just a little dressier than normal. But it could sort of, I was like, well, I guess I have to wear like actual, like nicer, maybe I get some nicer pants. I can't wear a t-shirt every day. Like that was like sort of the concession to those. So I mean, it was in that way, it was kind of interesting because it pushed me a little bit to maybe do some things that I wouldn't normally do every day, but it wasn't hard for me because I was going to kind of do that anyway. I actually ended up wearing a different pair of boots that I've had for 8-9 years, maybe, that I wore for like a few weeks, and then I just sort of put them away just because I'm sure because some other pair came in and I just didn't. And so I went back to wearing those and ended up wearing those for basically the whole time. But I'd already
mean this year?
Yeah.
What were they?
But I'd already started wearing them. They were already like a little broken in and worn, and they were the natural Chrome XL work shoe horse crust.
It's a lot.
Viberg did
a lot of nouns.
And they did like one run of them. They were with context. So I mean, how long ago was that?
Like and how
10,
cool is that?
Like 8, 9, 10 years ago, maybe. And they're so beefy, but I ended up I pulled them back out because I was like, I really don't like the outsoles on those. I was like, I'm gonna wear through these. I'm gonna wear through this outsole so I can put something on there that's actually comfortable, which is kind of like a silly thing. Like I hate the way this feels. I'm gonna wear it until it doesn't feel this way anymore, so I can change it. But
that's the Viberg move.
But the outsoles, I mean, a lot of people like I think it's Dr. Soul, the outsole. And a lot of people really like them. I just don't. It's just not my. I just don't find them very comfortable.
Along those lines, I was talking to Ben about the Thunderdome, and I actually gave him a heads up before I put out the video. And it's like, I feel bad about this thing. But anyways, he's like, hey, sounds like a completely reasonable emotion. And he also said that, or somebody, I forget who had mentioned this, but there's also a new consideration to not have to start with new pairs. So in the example that you just gave, like you could have entered the thing with that, like, hey, I've worn these a bit, but we can still see some transformation in 6 months, even though they're not brand new. I don't know.
Sounds like a nightmare to judge that because you have to look at starting and end
I think
points.
Part of the problem is the judging, man. Like who cares? Like I think a lot of people like the prizes and I think that's neat. But for me, like I just like to see everybody's cool stuff. And by the way, people are wearing like really awesome stuff, and some of the transformations are crazy. I don't know how people are just hiking and riding motorcycles way more than I am. But
yeah, I haven't even really looked at.
They're good.
I haven't looked at this stuff yet. I mean, I sort of here and there, and I have an idea of what the finalists, sort of like the top 20 or whatever, just because I was curious from a leather standpoint because I'm selfish. But
were you pleased to see any of your stuff represented, any of your material represented?
Oh yeah, it's always.
You ever surprised at how that stuff wears in? Surprise is the key word here.
I don't know that I've been surprised. I guess I'm looking at some pictures right now. I mean, like the work People's Choice winner, which was those Marine Field shoe. We also have Mercedes ropers, I guess, cowboy boots.
Pretty awesome.
Well, they're just like they're covered in indigo.
Yeah.
So that was cool. That's just because of how they were worn, but they look
pretty sweet.
Shout out to Black Bear, Josh.
Oh, that was a Black Bear?
Yeah.
The past guest.
Yeah.
Man, we got great guests on the show. I really like the Thunderdome concept, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do it again unless some of the format changes. I might just participate and like drop out if it sucks for me. It just might not be for me anymore. That's where I'm at.
No, I think I understand. I think that people maybe are picking pairs to be like a little bit just like off the wall or hard to find or both. And I didn't look exactly, but I don't know how many of those actually are like the ones that do well or are finalists or People's Choice. I think that I don't know. I just think I understand like wanting to try new stuff, but to try something new because it's like wacky is
it's a flex.
Yeah.
Like, and I get that too. It's like, look how cool this is.
Yeah, I totally get it. But I don't know.
I want to see that. I want to see off the wall stuff. That's what I live for. That's why I like progressive metal. Like I want like the craziest,
good point. Good point. That's a good point.
But like for me, like I wear the stock indie boot. I wear the stock 1,000 Mile.
Yeah, I guess.
And to that note, speaking of crazy, there's a new leather that I picked out. There's a new leather that I asked Dan to help source. I noticed a lot of our customers really like a lot of intense grain character and like sort of that shrunken bison look. So he was working it with your tanners and came up with a really cool like shrunken bison. I think you're calling it Yosemite. Does that sound correct?
Sounds right.
I have 5 sides of it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
like
really
a
nice.
really nice hand-tipped shrunken grain. Do you think, Brett, if you're listening, do you think Brett would be into making me a pair for perhaps the next Thunderdome? Because I would wear that.
That's between you and Brett.
Yeah? All right, I'm going to ask him.
Yeah,
All
I mean, it's a cool...
It's awesome.
Yeah. We haven't done like a you shrink it in the blue, We haven't done that in a while just because you need to do a lot of pieces. And if you don't have a lot of orders for shrunken grain stuff, it's not.
Yeah, Dan told me there's a big minimum, and I said, let's do it. It looks so good. But the only problem is, again, to the first topic, is it's going to be a wait. So it's like at least 6 months to get some stuff in. So it's like immediately pull and it's double the price. He's like, it's going to be expensive and take a long time. Don't care. Looks beautiful. Let's go for it.
Well, it's double the price because it's half the size. Because when we shrink it shrinks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, we've talked about yield, I think, like every episode. But if you've got the same hide cost in half the area, it just makes it.
It's also hand tipped, right? So somebody's got to sit there every side and just like brush over the tips of the texture. It's a big deal.
Which isn't something you can do on a machine effectively. I mean, and you can't just do it. You kind of have to.
There's an art to it.
Right amount of dye on the swab,
but that's the progressive metal of leather. It's like extreme metal.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. We'd had the blue color, but I think if you get some browns and like more mainstream type colors, I think that's going to be a hit. It's a beautiful product.
Yeah, light brown with dark brown or like an almost black on top. Pretty. I mean, it's like pretty classic, but.
All right, we're not economists and we are not politicians or political scientists.
I agree with everything you've said so far.
Are we historians? I know you are really into history.
I do like history a lot.
You approached me with the topic of that it's leather related.
Kind of.
Essentially
very
like
obliquely.
Curing or like preserving things. When you say that, I think about like ancient Egypt, but you had a different topic called bog bodies.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's
what's a bog body? It sounds
body?
Strange.
So this is pretty. We're stepping out of like the leather thing, but I thought it was interesting, and it's not totally unrelated, but kind of. But so there's I think a lot of them have found. I should know since we're talking about it right now, but like Ireland, like the UK, like Great Britain, where they have a lot of peat bogs, and they find from time to time these human remains in the bogs, and they've been like preserved crazy well because there's no in the bogs themselves are very acidic, and they have very high high tannin content. So tannin is the same thing used in tanning, and then also almost no oxygen in there. So there's nothing
to break it down.
There's nothing to spoil the normally spoiling stuff.
Well, does the acid allow for those tannins to penetrate? Is that why the acidity is relevant?
That's the way it is in well, it's the other way around. Usually it's when you introduce acid that you have to have salt along with it. So if it's more, the higher the acid, or I guess the lower the pH. So the more acidic something is, then you need acid, because if you just put acid on, cells or something, the acid eats away at the cell, and the cell just explodes, and that's why it just dissolves. But if you buffer it with salt, which is what pickling is, then you can penetrate the membrane without rupturing it, because
we're not chemists
We're
either.
not chemists, but you're trying to match create more of an equilibrium in terms of salinity, I believe is the.
Makes sense.
We should fact check that and edit that out if that's not correct. It's been a while since I read about that stuff, but
this is somewhat related to the bog bodies.
Yeah, I mean, so they find these bog bodies, and they've been like preserved amazingly well. Like they still have like leather like cords wrapped around them, or they had all their hair, and because the only thing that doesn't hold up are the bones, because the calcium gets leached out and those go away. So it's kind of like they don't really look like a mummy like you would think of in Egypt, but it's crazy how well preserved they are. And then they're darkened because of the tannins and all that stuff, because they're in there for thousands of years, and they find them. And
so what are these? Do they look like soldiers, or these just like citizens that are chilling and fell into a bog? Like, what is it?
Well, it runs. There's a bunch of different. So
or is it like a ritualistic bog
yeah,
throwing?
I mean, there's that. There's a lot of like, I don't think we should go that deep on it. I think people, because there's a pretty good podcast I listened to. I should remember the name of it because it wasn't that long ago. I think it's
we're gonna plug it.
Called Morbid. Yeah. And they do an interesting job talking about like the actual sort of brutal nature of some of the bodies they found, like how they're ritually sacrificed in some, and that's the theory in some cases, just because of like how they're in there and like what they have with them and
like how they're
what's been
adorned or whatever.
Yeah, and like stuff wrapped around their necks and like they've been cut up into pieces and stuff. So it's pretty heavy. But
so you were reading, you came across this on like Instagram. Like, let's plug where people can look at what these things look like.
Yeah, so it's
I'll look it up too.
I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, it pops up in the news from time to time. I mean, it's like a pretty. I mean, there's a lot. It turns out there's actually been a lot of them discovered, like from a long time, because with the peat bogs, that was like a main source of heating fuel in Great Britain. So they would go in there with these machines or by hand. They would cut the peat and then dry it, and then they would use it like you kind of would use coal, I guess.
Yeah,
or like a
good
wood.
fuel source.
Yeah. So they were in the bogs like pretty often anyway, like to get stuff, and then they would find a lot of times now they're finding them like with machinery. So they kind of like get damaged like as they're found because it's like a big piece of equipment's cutting the peat. But yeah, so they find these, and there's been hundreds of them found, but only sort of in the last, I think like 60 years have they been found and then like preserved properly. Mm-hmm. So you'd find them, you take them out, they would study them, take pictures of them, and then they'd be gone because they would immediately start to decompose.
Oh, that's so crazy. I just asked ChatGPT, what's up with the bog bodies? They said bog bodies are the naturally preserved corpses of humans and some animals recovered from peat bogs. The bodies have been most commonly found in northern European countries of Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands, and the UK and Ireland.
Yep.
They date from different periods, ranging from the Neolithic to the Second World War.
Yep.
That's wild. The oldest known bog body is a skeleton of Kjølberg woman from Denmark who was dated as 8000 BCE. The best preserved bog bodies are those that were placed in acidic pools in bogs with low oxygen and low temperature, as you said. These conditions prevent the decomposition of skin, hair, nails, wool, and leather, but dissolve the bones. Again, nailed it, Nick. Some of the most famous bog bodies include Tollundman, Grauballeman, and Lindauman. Butchered all those pronunciations.
Well, the photos are worth a Google too. I mean, they're pretty crazy.
The history of bog bodies is still a mystery. Some of them may have been killed as part of a ritual sacrifice or as punishment for crimes. Others may have died accidentally or by natural causes and were buried in bogs according to their customs. Some may have been placed on the borders of ancient kingdoms as a symbolic gesture. Archaeologists and anthropologists are trying to learn more about the lives and deaths of these people by examining their clothes, injuries, DNA, stomach contents, and isotopes.
Yeah, wow. They can find out when they can, because a lot of times if they can find out, like they can find what's in their stomach still, and then based on that they have a theory on how like rich they were, how wealthy they were, based on what they were eating, and then also what time of year they met their demise.
The World War II one, though, is surprising. What's that?
I think that's, I looked, I heard it was a World War II Luftwaffe pilot that crash landed and then tried to make his way either out of or across a bog, and then for however happened, didn't make it, and then sunk into the bog, and then that's from the 40s. So
it's so wild.
But yeah, there was like one of the craziest stories that I read was and if you listen to the Morbid episode, they go into a lot of detail about it, but this guy was suspected of killing his estranged wife, but they never found any of her remains. And then just briefly. Years later, they found some remains of a woman like near in a bog near where he lived at the time, and they confronted him with that information, and he confessed to the crime and to putting her in the bog.
Jeez.
And then they sent the remains to a school to Oxford, so they know what they're doing at Oxford usually to date it and study it and all that stuff. And they came back with a date of 250 AD. So it wasn't her remains at all, but it was so well preserved. Like it still had like nerves and hair, and so it's like he confessed to a crime based on a.
So did he actually do it, or they frame him and just said like?
No, I think. Well, I mean, they never found. I think he actually they like signed confession was enough to put the guy away. But it's just crazy that they thought it was remains from recent history, and it turned out to be 2,000 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's pretty. So just to give you an idea, like you can then look at the pictures and see how crazy. So I guess the tanning tie-in a little bit, and I guess it counts with food a little bit too. It's kind of a weird transition, but it's all you're thinking about. It's all perishable product. Like it's all kind of in the same family, and how you preserve something, you have to manage like certain parts of it, and it's kind of the same across everything. So if back in my cooking days, in order to keep food safe, you're managing the same thing. So it's just the acronym is FATTOM, FATTOM, and F just is food, but the other ones are acidity, time, temperature, oxygen, and moisture. So those are the things that you have to affect in order to keep something from perishing, and it's the same no matter what you do. So in the case of the bog bodies, it's acidity, it's temperature, it's oxygen. I mean, you've managed like 3 of the 5, so you can preserve it. And then in tanning, it's acidity, it's moisture.
It's all of it.
Yeah, I mean it's
the same exact thing.
I mean it's you're through parts of it, but once you put it back out, there are things in there. The type of fats and oils that are in it are a big deal because those can spoil. So once in the case of tanning, we're taking those out, purifying them and then putting them back in an altered form. So I mean, it's kind of the same deal with all of this. So it's interesting. I just thought it was interesting, especially if you look at those pictures, like how leathery the stuff looks.
Yeah.
And then that got us talking about history of tanning, which I think is like a whole other research topic for us.
Well, we've been talking about doing I don't know if we want to do a series on the history of leather tanning or just an episode, depending. It's deep, but it's kind of in the same vein as the bog bodies. Is I wonder if some ancient human found a person in a bog and was like, "Whoa, that's still there. Let me try to recreate that with this sheepskin I have." I have a feeling or suspicion that a lot of the origins of tanning are accidental, or like, "Hey, that bison hide looks really warm and it's cold outside. Let me try to wear it and like preserve it and figure out a way." We'll go down that road.
Yeah,
I think the history stuff is really neat.
I almost want to get somebody.
Yeah, let's go. We have a nice natural history museum here.
I wonder if there's any.
There's a leather exhibit there. I've seen it.
Maybe we should patch in someone from one of the leather colleges. Maybe they would be so kind as to do like a brief leather history. But
leather historians, if you're listening,
send us an email.
Come at us. All right, good episode today, Nick.
Yeah. it was fun.
It's been a while, man.
We get back into the swing of things.
Yeah. I'm going to delete the first 15 minutes of what we did because it sucked, but everything else was great, man.
Just the first 45 minutes or so.
It's all uphill from here.
7-minute podcast.
Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back again soon with some more episodes. We got some great guests coming along. If you have any questions or comments, you want to send us an email, you can send it to fullgrainpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on YouTube. If you want to see our beautiful faces, we'll put up some pictures of bog bodies on there too, which are pretty gnarly. You can check them out on our YouTube channel. It's also Full Grain Podcast. Until next time, Hope you guys have a good one. Thanks so much, Nick.
Bye-bye.